Now join Paul Smith and the student Dowsers as he provides beginner advice, as well as an introductory explanation of analytical overlay, one of the greatest pitfalls for beginning Dowsers.
The idea with analytical overlay, of course, is interference of your conscious processing. Now, that can actually happen at a level that you almost think of as unconscious, because it can happen very quickly, and you may not be really aware of how your conscious awareness then contributed the wrong answer to something. So how does analytical overlay interfere with the dowsing situation? Well, some of you have had that experience today where you have thought something about the target and proceeded to attempt to not have that in your head, but nonetheless, in a way, it guided your hand to do something that turned out to be wrong. Okay? Your conscious mind has a lot of control over what you do, over your volition, over your decision making and everything. And so it's always helpful to improve your understanding how to deal with that. And practice is usually the best way. One of the reasons that you want to not take too long dwelling on a specific dowsing problem, but try and efficiently go through it, capture it thoroughly, but don't take too long to do it, is because the longer you dwell on it, the more your consciousness, your conscious awareness has time to work on it as well and introduce red herring that lead you off into the sunset in the wrong direction or whatever. The goal of trying to manage what your conscious awareness is doing is obviously so that you be more correct more often. And there are a couple of ways of overcoming the interference that it gives. One of which is to not take so long, to be, don't want to say spontaneous, because that can be also impulsive. And being impulsive will get you in trouble almost as much as being too deliberate. There's a fine line here that you have to learn, usually by trial and error, and lots of practice and taking practice opportunities. But oftentimes you've probably all noticed this in your lives, that oftentimes the first impression you get about something turns out to be the right thing. Right? And you sit there and think about it and second guess it and talk yourself out of it, and later on you say, oh darn, that was how I should have done it after all, or that's the decision I should have made. I knew it up front and I talked myself out of it. Well, you got to be careful, because you can do that with dowsing as well. So particularly when you're in a learning mode, it's usually best to take your first impression and go with it, and not go back and recheck it and go over it and reconfirm it, and is that right, well, I'm not so sure if I feel that way about it anymore. And you've gone so much that you've muddied the water, so to speak. Yeah, it's all jumbled up, and so when you do get your feedback, you're no longer quite sure exactly what it was you're experiencing. So usually it's better to take a cut at it, see how you did, check your feedback, find out, oh, I was off like this, take another cut at it, go back again, check your feedback, oh, I'm closer this time. Do that trial and error, and you'll sometimes be more successful, and you'll feel really good about that. There are other times that you will just be not getting anything, and you'll feel very frustrated and depressed. The point is, don't take any of this personally, okay? It's a standard learning process of a difficult kind of intuitional skill, and you're bound to have a lot of failures along with a lot of successes. What's important is to look at your overall progress. When I was trying to teach myself guitar, I read something that was very interesting. One of the books I was reading said that this person had always counseled his students that after they've been playing for a little while, when they're really discouraged and their fingers hurt like crazy and they felt like they were not getting anywhere, to just at that point turn the guitar over and try and do it with their other hand. Because that was the stage they were at 3 weeks before, when they didn't know how to do anything. And it's interesting that you see the contrast between what you really can do now and what you couldn't do before. You have made progress, it just doesn't seem that way all the time. A gut feeling feels different, or at least as far as we know, or can know, everybody's gut feeling feels different than everybody else's gut feeling feels, okay? We tend to know what that means when somebody says it. But that doesn't necessarily translate even into dowsing success. Your experience of being on dowsing may be way different than a gut feeling, okay? That may work in larger intuitional things like taking your umbrella, but a fine point on a map, that feeling may be completely different. The way you do it, and this is the way you do it in remote viewing when you try and get people to recognize when they're on or not, is you put them in the barrel and you make them try it. And trial and error, that's why practice is important. Trial and error, they will learn themselves what it feels like to be on and what it feels like not to be on. But that only happens if they're honest with themselves. There's lots of people who will do this, and they'll do it and do it, and they'll fool themselves into thinking they're doing it when they're actually really data fitting. They're saying, well, oh look, I was here, that's within 5 miles of the target, that's close enough, you know, that counts. Well, no, it depends on what the criteria are. Right? But see, that's the whole point of all this. You learn the methodologies, you learn the techniques, and then you put yourself in environments where you either fail or succeed, and you check yourself to see what you were doing when you succeeded or when you failed, how you felt when you succeeded or when you failed, and you do it often enough, you'll start to learn. It's exactly how you learn to ride a bike. You get on the bike and you fall off of that sucker, right? You get on it again and you fall off again. And any skill that's subjective like this, where individual inner experience is what makes it work, and what is the difference between success and failure, that's how it works. You learn the principles, you learn the practice, and then you get the experience. Knowing that was factual knowledge, like this is the brake on the bike, this is the L rod, this is how you hold it, this is what you're trying to accomplish with it when you do it. That's all the knowing that. The knowing how, however, is completely different than that. It's a different kind of knowing, and that you only get it by actually getting involved in having the experience and doing the work and falling off of your bike and getting back on it. And if anybody tells you any different,